inspired false gospels. The Quran has inspired false gospels. The Quran, in a few places, makes this claim where it claims continuity with the previous prophets. Look at point B there. Those who follow the messenger, the prophet who can neither read nor write, whom they will find described in the Torah and the Gospel which are with them. You see there how it's referring to the Torah and the Gospel and saying that Muhammad's foretold in them. Or point C. O you unto whom the Scripture has been given, that's referring to Christians and Jews, believe in what we have revealed, that's the Quran, confirming that which you possess. So it's saying to Christians, what you possess, the Quran confirms this. Now the difficulty is, as I've shown you, that it doesn't. And this has led some Muslims to rewrite the Gospel. The two that I'd like to draw to your attention are the Gospel of Barnabas and the Gospel according to Islam. I'd like to read the introduction to the Gospel according to Islam, and it's point D on your notes there. It says, the book before you, so this is actually written by the author, Ahmad Shafat, who wrote the Gospel according to Islam in 1979. The book before you is a gospel. It is written in the light of the revelation of God that God made to the Prophet Muhammad. This outline is supplemented in this book by some background material derived mostly from the New Testament and sometimes transformed according to the Quranic revelation to form a gospel approximately the size of Mark. As we said earlier, this book is offered as a new gospel, a Muslim equivalent of and alternative to the existing gospels. Now you see what the Islamic scholar has done there. He's very clear, isn't he? He's got this problem that the Gospels that we have in the Bible, they don't agree with the Quran. So he has rewritten them. He's rewritten the Gospel and he's been very upfront in what he's done there. He's taken the Gospel of Mark and he's transformed it by reading the Quran and changing Mark to agree with the Quran. Now I want to say that that's shameful. That is an absolutely shameful thing to do. But the reason why he's done this is that he's felt compelled to do it, because even though the Quran claims to confirm the earlier prophets, it doesn't. The Gospel of Barnabas is another example from the 14th century. So my conclusion here is that the Quran's picture of Jesus, its account of Jesus, is not reliable because it's not historical. It doesn't agree with the earlier prophets, and it has driven some Muslims to rewrite the Gospel. Now, the Muslim may say, yes, but the Quran is perfect. It's absolutely perfect, and so it doesn't matter what evidence you give me, because the Quran is perfectly preserved, it doesn't matter, because the Quran is perfect. Now, we looked at some of that yesterday, and that's points E and F on your notice there, and we saw that the early Muslims recited the Quran differently, and that Uthman standardised one Quran and burned the rest. Tonight I thought we'd look at a Shia scholar, Abi Yaqub al-Nadim. I mentioned him last night and I thought we'd look at him now. He's a fascinating character and has done us a great service in history. He was a librarian of the 4th Islamic century and the 10th Christian century, and he wrote a catalogue of every single book he could find in Arabic, and it is one of the great works of the Arabic peoples. It's a snapshot of the 10th century from China right across into Europe, of all the different scripts, all the different books, by this man who was like a librarian. If you notice at point G there, he has a catalogue. He puts all of his books in catalogues, and point G is a catalogue that he has of books, of 7 books. And the books are under the title of the books composed about the discrepancies of the Quranic manuscripts. I won't go through all of them now, but you can see them there, and this was an area of study of the early scholars as they looked at all the different all the different collections of the Qurans, the ones that Uthman had burnt. When you look at these scholars, you see that some of them had 110 surahs, some 116. The order of the surahs were different. Sometimes the verses themselves had differences, like the example I gave in that hadith, and they had different attitudes to the Bismillah as well. So I just put that up there because we can't just dismiss the evidence I've put forward by saying the Quran is perfect and therefore I can ignore everything you've said. That's not the case. And of course, I've got this book again tonight which has the differences between the Arabic, the 10 accepted Arabic versions of the Quran that are accepted today. So please consider carefully my evidence. I'd like to move on now to Jesus in Christianity, and I want to look at the same areas, looking at history and the prophets, and then finally Jesus and Jew. Now, when we look at Jesus and history, we see that the account of him in the Bible is actually an historical account. It's put forward that way. It is based on eyewitness accounts from the time. The accounts that we have in the Bible are actually the oldest accounts of Jesus' life, and they come from his disciples. Not only that, but we have multiple witnesses. It's not just one disciple of Jesus testifying, but there are many disciples and even his brothers testifying to him. And one of the things you'll notice if you read the Gospel, and if you're a visitor here, we've got 3 Gospels for you. One of the things you'll find is that it's full of details. So if you're reading the Gospel, you'll see that it will talk about Jesus, it will name his disciples, it will say he was in this town, whether it was near a lake or not, and sometimes it will even say how far it was from one town to the next, and whether or not they were even going up or down. Now you need to understand that historians love that. They absolutely love that type of information. It's not just saying Jesus said, it's all this background information. If you look at point H on your notes there, this is from Dr. John Dixon, and he writes, "Professional historians, regardless of their religious persuasion, treat the New Testament and its portrait of Christ far more seriously than the general public realises." You just can't dismiss the New Testament and the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John as just historical nonsense. Historians don't do that. They can be engaged with historically. We can also compare their picture to history of the time, and when scholars do that, we see there is great agreement.